Welcome, everyone. It is Monday, the 4th of May, one day before Cinco de Mayo, which happens to be my birthday. A lot of fun back in the days. I can't tell you how many people would buy me Coronas. And I don't drink, and my buddies loved it because I would get gobs of beer on my birthday and I just pass it off to them. I'm going to turn a whopping 48. 48, how'd my wife say it? He's actually 48 years old, but he's going on about 16 as a maturity level, but his body's going on about 75. So here we go. Today is probably going to be rather quick, short and simple. Last night I couldn't sleep. I knew we had a couple positions that we had added protection on Sunday because we didn't want to, or on Monday, excuse me, on Friday, so we could cover Saturday and Sunday. Little fearful about comments Trump was making. I went to bed around 8:30 last night. I was still up at 1:43 in the morning. My brain just doesn't shut off. It listens to what's going on. I pay attention, and it's just, it's just all part of the, I guess, part of what you go through when you manage money. Not a bad thing necessarily if you use your time wisely. If you sit in bed and don't do anything, then you're in trouble. But I watched Extradition, I believe is what it's called, a new, I think it's Chris Hemsworth, Netflix Army shoot 'em up movie. And the comment was made in that movie, you don't drown by jumping in the river. You don't drown by jumping in a fast river. You drowned by staying submerged. And so really all I'm going to focus on today is the fact that there are things you have to do when you're trading in the market so that you don't stay submerged. For those of you that may have attended the, not attended, for those of you that may have received my email that I sent out this morning, just a monthly recap. The idea is you have your game plan so that you know what's going on and so that you're prepared, not necessarily to be able to outguess the market, but to be ready to fight it as needed. So where did I go in this? So some people are questioning, well, Kevin, you kind of overdid it on Boeing. Well, maybe. The good news is we don't know yet. But as I told most people before, temporarily, we're in a temporary pandemic. And in all honesty, temporary is different for everyone. I remember when my parents would temporarily ground me. And it's funny because it's like, you know what? It's only for a night. We've got to punish you because we've got 3 younger brothers behind me that if they don't punish me, they're going to think they get away with everything. And I'm like, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what Craig did or Mike did or Joe did. And my parents were still, hey, we've got to punish you temporarily. We're just going to take away a night. And again, they're always, it's just a night. And I said, well, why don't you tell someone like that that's drowning? It's just a minute underwater. You can hold your breath that long. That minute for some people can seem like eternity. So what do? You understand, well, most likely we'll get through this sometime this year. The gains will still probably come in November if Trump gets elected. If the Democrats get elected, we'll probably drop 20%. And the short answer is, if I haven't given my stock replacement strategies enough time, we're going to condense them down and buy lower strike price farther out in time and give myself another year. So that's the game plan. Well, Kevin, what if you have only 7,000 when you started with 11,000 of profit, or excuse me, of a cost basis in Boeing? Well, then plain and simple, I'm going to take that 7, be down 4, and find a way to work out in time so that I can become profitable in those positions. It's not like my thought process is every trade I'm going to be profitable on. My thought process is, okay, where I guess strong, where I'm not getting things to move the way that I want to, I need to buy myself some more time so that they can be. And sometimes you just got to cut your losses. But I'm going to go over that here in a minute. This week there are 143 S&P 500 companies reporting. Last week we had our second straight week of down markets. Now it's not down huge. I mean, the S&P was down 0.2%. So plain and simple, we closed out April with one of our best months since 1987. Utilities was a laggard. I'm going to go over that here in just a bit. And plain and simple, we have some hopium in regards to possibly having some of these, the Pfizer's, the Merck, the Regeneron, the Gilead, be able to come out with some type of vaccine or some way to offset what we're seeing when it comes to COVID-19. With that said, pretty interesting because technically we're still bullish. Even though we have a crossover on the 5 and the 20, even though we have looks like our RSI, we seem to be getting a bounce right now on the 50-day simple moving average on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So we still have, plain and simple, we still have a bullish market intact, even though we're getting some conflicting signals. S&P technically still bullish because we still don't have a crossover on the MACD or the RSI. We do have support at 2748. And obviously the NASDAQ, there is no debate or not if we were bullish or not. It's doing really good. But what we did have today was the questions, what about Boeing in regards to Buffett's airline comments? If you missed it, Buffett exited all of his airlines. And he was more cordial than he was last time he exited the airlines, where he really ripped them up one side and down the other. Warren Buffett said they're well run. He just doesn't have the patience, and they're going to be in a bit of a predicament. And again, here we are trying to follow an analyst, which is kind of funny because I need to get myself out to South Carolina sometime in the middle of June. Plain and simple, middle of June, I'm heading out to South Carolina. have a couple people I need to visit. So I think I'm going to be South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and then I'll be back home. And I'm going to fly. I've got to fly. On too long of a drive out there, I'm not interested in sleeping in the back of my truck that long. But he was done. He exited every position. You want to know why the airlines are down so much, sometimes as much as 75%? Billions of dollars came out of the airlines. Well, how does this affect Boeing? Let me ask that to the group. How does this affect Boeing? I'm going to give you a minute to answer here. They might lose a lot of planes, less demand for planes. They might lose a lot of the back orders. Depends on back orders. Kind of interesting. We have that fear, right? Now, some people have told me, well, Boeing's lost 10% of their orders. And those are the people that I know that don't know jack squat about the stock market because they didn't work the numbers. They actually lost 10.3% of their 737 orders. But on their overall orders, they lost a little over 3.1 because a lot of those orders shifted over to the 787s. They've got over $500 billion worth of back orders. Boeing has additional contracts with the government for the military. And most recently, we just had an aviation pilot that landed a $16 million jet. I believe it was $16 million. And training, wasn't going fast enough, didn't have his touch and go wheels down. Man, he dragged that thing for like over a mile. But you got to think, right? If it can handle 50 caliber bullets, shooting at it, hopefully one of the F-22s can handle being, scraping on its belly for over a mile as a pilot makes a mistake. Really, I want to say Boeing has gone through the worst. Buffett's comments had zero to do with Boeing. It'll be interesting on what really happens. But a $400 company being down at 130 has a lot of upside potential. Just the key is to understand Buffett. Let me see if I can type right. Buffett said nothing about Boeing. And I'm looking at how their supply line or supply orders have held up. They've held up ridiculously well. Well, Kevin, fuel is cheap. I agree, fuel is cheap. But it doesn't mean you don't try to save gas if you have your new planes coming in. A lot of these new planes have already had significant down payments on them. I don't know what Boeing is going to do. What I do know is they haven't lost 10% of their orders or their backlog. They've lost 3.1. And they've done it basically losing 0.8% of their revenue or profit. I know that Boeing said absolutely nothing. I know that Buffett said absolutely nothing about Boeing. And I don't try to infer those two. I just know Boeing has a rough road ahead of it, and Buffett hates the airlines. Keeve asked an amazing question today. Keeve asked, why can't Buffett find value? He just lost, he just lost 50, it was actually 53 point something. I've got an article down here that talks about it. But Buffett just lost 50 billion, 53.26 billion was where it came out. I guess that's of the Class A shares. Class B, it was more like 48, but worst loss, ever for Buffett. And Keeve asked a great question. He said, you know what, Kevin? Why can't Buffett find value? Why did he not really buy into stocks through this dip? And it's very interesting as you think about it, because most people did buy in this dip. But a lot of times I've told you, hey, if I don't understand what's going on, I'm going to do the hardest thing there is to do in trading. I'm going to sit on my hands. I sometimes hate sitting on my hands. But at times, that's the only choice I'm left with. I need to sit on my hands. I got to make the comment to Keeve, just because something's cheap doesn't mean it's a good deal. Doesn't mean it has good value in it. Just because things were cheap, Buffett couldn't find a good deal, a company of good value, even though some prices had come down significantly. Even after he said, I've got 30, 40, 50 billion to put to work. He's sitting on a cash pile of 137 billion. I think second highest next to Apple. He couldn't find a good deal, even though everything is so cheap. I thought it was ridiculously interesting to go through his comments that he made over the weekend. With that said, where will our markets end this week? I'm going to say higher, bouncing off the 50-day simple moving average, which means we'll probably look at, on the Dow, we could make a run back up to 25,828. Maybe 2,500 would be a hard one. Maybe we don't even reach our highs. But if you follow trend lines, somewhere above 2,500, 25,000. And we still do have higher highs and higher lows. But if you extend it out, we are coming up to, it's turning into a pennant. We're starting to pinch here. Well, we'll look to have a breakout here in the near future, one way or the other. S&P. We might have a little bit farther down to that 2748 range. We might hit our pivot point at 2771. But it looks like we also got a bounce. Not to mention, as I looked at our futures today, futures after hours, they were positive. Futures. The Dow's up 107, the S&P's up 10.25, the Nasdaq's up 41.75. So some idea that we're opening up our economy and things might get better. Last but not least, Nasdaq Composite has remained pretty bullish. We may go down and test the 84.29. That's the 200-day, but we seem to be getting a bounce up higher from here as well. A bounce off the median line on the Williams %R. Where will we end May? I'm still going conservative at 2%. Earnings, a lot of earnings are coming through. For us, we have some big ones this week. We have Disney tomorrow. We have MRO, so that's Marathon Oil on Wednesday. We have Baidu on Thursday. I'm excited for Baidu. Baidu could be a 20-point jump to the upside. 2,000 basis points. Only because to keep up possibly the farce in China, they've been up and running for the last 2 months. They can't afford to have a company come out and say, hey, things suck. It'll be very interesting to see how we end up there. Economic reports. Today we had factory orders, auto and truck. I did not get the auto and truck, but the factory orders came in worse than expected, a negative 10.3 when it should have been a negative 9.1. ADP employment is going to suck. The non-manufacturing or services index going to come in at 38.5. Anything below 50 shows contraction. It's going to suck. Consumer credit, initial and continuing claims, productivity on Thursday. On Friday, we're going to go through our average work week. Our average work week, again, with non-farm and private payroll, as well as the unemployment rate, is going to suck. Steve and I, as we spoke this morning in our meeting, pretty interesting. I wish Trump wasn't such a, how would I say it? I wish he wasn't such a glory hog. Because in all honesty, that man is not only going to hold the record for the lowest unemployment rate in the last 50 years, there's a good chance he's also going to hold the record for the highest. Oh, come on, Trump. Stop your mouthing off. Just be quiet. Japan is industrial production on Wednesday. We're also going to see the services, non-manufacturing indexes for China, the Euro GDP. They're all expecting to suck. Pretty interesting. We are protecting through earnings. If you remember, as this all started to fall back in February, we did have short calls on Disney, Apple, Baidu, Boeing, Facebook, I believe we had some, Visa, we had some. I am going to be looking to put short calls back on. We're getting through this earnings with how far things had fallen. I just didn't want to get caught in a jump. I didn't want things to bounce higher. So with that said, yes, the short answer. Sorry about that. Looks like we lost our audio connection there for a second. Yes, we're going to look for some short calls to get some more credit. You guys able to hear me okay? Just going to do a sound check. Looks like I did lose my sound there for a second, but you guys should be able to hear me. Thank you, Maud. All righty. All right, I just have some interesting information here. Jeffrey is shorting the market, says retest the low is very plausible. Double Line CEO Jeffrey Gunlock put some pretty interesting points here. So to think we're out of the woods, please read through this article. Really comes down to how quickly will we get workers back, and what about our coronavirus? With that said, yesterday we had like 27,000 new cases. Saturday we had 28,000 new cases, and more importantly, Saturday was our biggest death toll rate on a single day. We lost 2,909 souls on a Saturday. If we take a look, where's our charts at? If we take a look at our charts, total cases still going up. If you take a look at the logarithmic, they're still going up. I pity the fools who told us in March that it was peaking. It's not peaking yet. Just go to your daily new cases. If you think that line shows that we're peaking, I need to talk statistics with you. We haven't peaked yet. I really don't know what else to say. What we're really doing is we're creating a freaking mountain range. We're creating the Rockies. But in no way does this chart boy, my audio is horrible today. I'm losing my audio left and right. In no way, make sure you guys are still able to hear me. One more time, if I can do a sound check, please let me know. In no way does, thank you, Maud, does our chart look anything like Italy's? That is called peaking and coming back down. That is what we're looking for, if not even better. So every time you hear someone talk about peaking, we've peaked. No, you just realized you're listening to someone that probably doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Plain and simple. Really, our peaking is going to have to do with finding a vaccine. Good news, Fed won't move on rates this week, and as we listen to them, Fed probably won't move on rates this year. We'll probably hear that sometime June, July, that even as people do come back to work, it will not be in the Fed's best interest to raise rates. Here we go for an extended period of time, having our benchmark interest rates down to 0 or less than 0 might be a great time if you're interested in refinancing your house. This will be kind of your last chance in summer. Pretty interesting to hear millennials are stockpiling into the stock market. Just something to pay attention to because they invest in some things that the rest of us don't. Interesting to see that millennials are actually getting into the stock market for the first time ever, as far as I'm concerned. Interesting to see that some of the companies that they are looking at, especially the big ones, are some of the ones that we're in right now. I love to see the Apple, the Disney, The Boeing. I've got some people that were looking at Carnival. Kind of a bummer that they're in American Airlines, right? Kind of bummer they're in cannabis, Netflix. Interesting to see some of the stocks that people think are winners. Latest computer models predict between, and I love this one, right? Predict between 0 and 12.6 billion new COVID-19 deaths by summer. Huh. We have what? We have, I know, what can I say? Worldometer. We have 7.782 billion people in the world, right? But their computer model is predicting 12.6 billion deaths by summer. So just to let everyone know, there's a good chance that we're all going to die by this summer if we follow the models that kind of make absolutely no sense. It's kind of a bummer when you plan or expect I don't know, Center for Disease Control, the WHO. I don't know who to listen to. I've been listening to John Hopkins for the most part, and man, I just don't know. I just don't know because none of them are making a whole lot of sense. Here's the Warren Buffett massive 50 billion net loss after it pummels his stock positions. The funny thing is, the comment was made to me, thought it was 54.52 billion. Yeah, that's probably what it was overall, but you know, you had some that went up a little bit. Someone also asked me, well, Kevin, I thought he uses options, and he does. He uses options and warrants. So he did this good after using some options and warrants to protect some of his positions. It was absolutely horrible. I found an interesting article on those who died from the virus in Italy. Now, I have not 100% fact checked this one, but I threw it out there because I found it very interesting that that plain and simple, a lot of what was happening out in Italy, these people had 2 or 3 other illnesses, which caused the death rate to be something fierce, something that a lot of us were worried about. I'll admit myself, I was worried about it. And it's just something to keep in mind. And last but not least, oil's recovery could take decades, not years. I think Julian Lee finally listened to me, that this is a supply and demand, not a pull on oil because of seasonal supply and demands. This is the fact that we have finally broken through OPEC, and that we now have 7, 8 other countries that are net oil exporters that can keep the demand for oil down for decades. I really, again, I keep saying this, it would not surprise me that maybe in 20 years we find out that oil is some kind of renewable source, which will crush the oil market. But until then, let's do the best we can to save our planet, right? Very interesting read. I suggest you read through it. And my last one, stocks are in a little danger of retesting the March lows. This is an interesting one from Art Hogan. I'm giving you one on by James Bianco that says we're going to crush it to the downside. And I think earlier I gave you one that said, well, that we're going to be fine. So I'm giving you 2 points of views on where our stock market can go. In all honesty, nobody knows. That's why you collar trade. That's why you continue to make something on the way down, so that when things come back, you can make some more money. Any questions I can answer for you guys? Any questions about anything? A comment was made, if I can read this. The problem with using epidemic models, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say almost every model ADP, is that current data used is absolutely unreliable. Ignorance on the pandemic dynamic is the rule. I do not give any here to those predictions. I agree. With the Fed backstopping everything, will we go down? Pretty interesting, right? You never fight the Fed. And boy, they came in with a vengeance. Mod, we've never retested those lows after we've gained higher by 50%. And of course, that's going to be okay until we do, right? That's a trend until we do test the lows. I'm going to tell you we're probably not going to test the lows. We're probably going to continue to mosey on higher, and we'll have new highs in November. But I think it all comes down to how quickly we get people back to work and how quickly do businesses recover. And I guess I'm not really saying small business, but how quickly do big businesses make a recovery? And in all honesty, if I understood right, the Fed's putting that extra $600 in until August. It wouldn't surprise me that we'll go through a September, October, where people are forced to get back to work. And again, we'll see the gains in this year come in November after the election. So yes, maybe we don't test the lows. Are there any other questions? So yes, Lance, are there some stocks or positions you don't have protection on? Yes, we did put protection on Apple, but where am I going to go to? Got protection on Boeing, protection on Baidu and Disney, they're reporting. Ford, we still have 550 protection on Facebook. We took our protection off of Facebook. Went through earnings, a pretty good earnings. Facebook right now has no protection on it. We haven't had protection on Target for a while. Bounced above the 200-day. Probably going to do a triple top at 114, where if we have some shares of Boeing, might be a great place to get out of half of them for a profit, see if it comes back down, or get out of everything. So the short answer is yes, there are some things we don't have protection on because we're doing nothing more than following technical analysis. There's no big secret to it. It's just, hey, they had great earnings and the market rewarded them. We saw companies like Apple have great earnings and the market did not reward them. We saw great earnings for a company like Visa and they went down pretty significantly. So you're going to take each position as an individual. It's an individual stock. You're going to look at each one on its own. Thank you. Someone put in a quick little video for me to look at here. Since I'm not sleeping, I can go watch a video that's going to be helpful. Any other questions you guys have? If not, I've got a call, my first call after this, that I'm going to make in about 17 minutes on the hour. Let them and myself go grab a quick bite or a drink. Guys, have a wonderful evening. Keeve will take care of you tomorrow evening, and I look forward to seeing you Thursday morning. I'll get this posted as quick as I can. Everyone have a great night.